Hi, my name is Darren Joseph from HCJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify that sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have the honor and privilege of having another conversation with Mark. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Mark Morris. I'm based in Zurich. I've been here for nearly 30 years, and I've exclusively devoted myself to automatic exchange of information since the year 2000. And I've been consultant to the EU Commission, the EU Parliament, the OECD regarding automatic exchange, as well as consulting for Tax Justice Network and various other parties. And I would say today, after 25 years, I'm the only person in the entire world that is promoting structures in 4 or 5 different territories that nobody seems to touch. But we'll go through those territories today.
Fantastic. Mark, next question. As an example, can you talk us through how a jurisdiction may become a dependency?
As I said, this is based on ancient connections. Yeah. Isle of Man, which has a history of much more than 1,000 years, but let's go back 1,000 years, more or less. In 1079, it was conquered by the Norse Gaelic king, Norse obviously being Viking, Gaelic because they were already in Europe. But by the 13th century, so 300 years later, the Norse power had waned due to conflicts with Scotland. They were fighting Scotland, and believe it or not, Scotland was beating them. And so they ceded Isle of Man to Scotland. Norse heritage still continues in the Manx language, the Manx language being a kind of domestic language in Isle of Man, you know, the Manx cat and so on. Okay. So it fell under control of Scotland, and then the UK came along and fought at Bruce. And then so Scotland and England fought, and they changed hands 6 times between these two. Eventually, the king won the battles and granted it to the Earl with the title of Lord of Man. Now we're beginning to see where Isle of Man comes from. So it was under UK sovereignty, but governed with semi-independence. And the British Crown bought it from the Earl in the 1700s, ending the feudal law. It was never incorporated into the UK, and since 1866, it has been a Crown dependency. So it's outside the EU and the UK, but the British monarch is the Lord of Man. Okay, so you can see there why it wasn't a colony. It was actually part of the UK, and because of the continuing ties, it's a dependency.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. And I think what is also interesting about jurisdictions like the Isle of Man is that you have a concentration of highly skilled professional advisors who are, well qualified, well suited, and who are able to advise on these structures that use jurisdictions like this. And what I've found is that that's important because in some jurisdictions, there may not be that availability of highly skilled professionals who are able to advise and draft and to help guide you in using structures of those jurisdictions. So I won't get into that because I know it's a bit sensitive, but I just think it's important that when you're choosing a jurisdiction that you know that there's a wealth, there's an availability of advisors that you can trust.
Okay. So the Swiss banks love using Jersey more than Guernsey.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there are direct flights on little airplanes from Zurich to Jersey. Yeah. And you can, and less often to Guernsey, because the banks have set up trustees and law firms, and I mean Jersey and Guernsey is full of law firms and professional trustees and lawyers and corporate service providers and accountants, etc. Okay.
Exactly, and that's exactly what makes them pretty attractive. Okay.
Mark, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so?
As I travel a lot, the best way to get hold of me is via my website, co-ownershiptrust.com, and then you can email me or try get hold of me by phone, but that depends on the country that I'm in. If they've got cell phone coverage, I go to some really remote places in the world, Falkland Islands, St. Helena, etc. So the best is via my website.